Hello, everybody. Thanks everyone watching who happens to watch live today or seeing this later. But I'm Taylor from Reclaim Hosting. I'm joined by Alexis and Jason. We're all excited to be here on Reclaim TV today to chat about our upcoming spring workshops for both Domain in One's Own and WordPress Multisite. So this will be kind of a quick one today, but we always like to do a little primer on how our workshops work a little bit in format and what the types of things we cover, just in case you're looking at this stuff and you're wondering why you may want to sign up and attend, and just kind of what they look like. They are remote workshops, so we kind of like to give people a feel for what to expect and what they'll get from signing up. So that's kind of what we're here to do today. So I guess before I even get to sharing my screen, Alexis and Jason, thanks for joining me today. So
yeah, excited to kind of intro. I have done these workshops, or I've participated in these workshops as like an outsider admin, and so it's kind of cool to be on the back end of it this time.
Awesome. And Jason, thanks for joining too. Not your first workshop for the Reclaim side, but it will be, I think, your first WordPress multi-site workshop with us here at Reclaim, or maybe I'm misremembering that.
No, I think you're right. It's been a while since we did one. I guess it was like last year, and yeah, I think we just did the regular WordPress, so not the WordPress multi-site. So yeah, I think it's the first time.
Yeah, I think it may be almost year and a half, 2 years on the multi-site one, because I don't know. I can't remember for sure, but we switched formats for our workshops a little bit and how we handle them. And I don't think we've done a multi-site workshop since we did that. So it's been at least a year for sure. So yeah. But none of us here are strangers to either Domain in One's Own or WordPress multi-site. So we're kind of, we're kind of excited to be able to share what we learn, what we think are best practices for making these types of projects successful. That's kind of what these workshops are about, in my mind. Not just, how do I do X or this is broken. Obviously, you get that all the time. That's what your support. That's what we're here to do and support you for. But this is a time to let you know about capabilities, think strategically, ask bigger questions, and also chat with other folks who are using WordPress multi-site at other schools and Domain in One's Own at other schools and for various projects. So I always find when I was a Domain in One's Own admin that it was really valuable to kind of hear from other admins who I was going to say have similar challenges or things they want to do, but honestly, even hearing from folks who have different challenges is often useful too, because no two WordPress multi-sites are alike. No two Domain in One's Own projects are alike. Everyone has a little bit different places they fit into their school or community, is kind of how I see this stuff. So it's really great to see and hear from other folks on, how they solve problems and their challenges. It always kind of sparked new ideas for me as an admin. So that's an exciting part of it too, is to kind of have that dedicated time to talk with us at Reclaim, but also other customers.
Yeah, and we often do get tickets from the support side of schools that are like, hey, I see this school is doing this thing. How can I do that? So it's kind of cool. You don't have to go through the middleman. You can actually just talk to the person that was doing that thing that you were excited about. So
yeah, for sure. All right. So before we go too far, we've got, like I said, we've got 2 dates coming up here. We've got a multi-site workshop and the Domain in One's Own workshop. The multi-site is on March 10th, and the Domain in One's Own workshop is on March 19th. They are both remote, and all of our workshops pretty much are remote, and they are all delivered, fully remote, fully online. They are both paid. The way this works is you can, and I'm just noticing, that's something we'll have to possibly adjust here, but you can sign up right on the event calendar for these. You'll find this at events.reclaimhosting.com. And you can go to one day that covers WordPress Multisite for $195, or you can get two seats for a discount, which would be $375. Or you can do one person who wants to go to both of these, which would be a combined ticket for both workshops. So that would be also a discount, or I'm trying to think. Yeah, it's a very slight discount, but something of a discount. It helps us when we don't have to process multiple things. So it's a pretty inexpensive workshop, I think. And so far, we've been really getting good feedback on this kind of new format that we'll talk about more as we go today. But this is also not a single day where you just sit on a Zoom call the whole day. We really don't like doing that kind of thing here at Reclaim. We like to try and make the most out of the medium, right? That is a remote, fully online workshop. So that means we have a mixture of different types of content. So we've got video stuff that we've prepared and you'll get access to that often goes through a lot of the technical, like, okay, here's how you do this, here's where this system is. And then we have sort of dedicated times to debrief, unpack, chat, ask questions, so that it's a mixture of both of those things sort of back to back throughout the day. The videos, part of all of, and other content is something that you'll have access to after the workshop. So when you get that, you can of course view it day of, and in fact we usually get you to folks a little bit early, so if they want to start watching things early, they can, and we don't take it away from you when the workshop time is over, so that's something you can always reference. But we do not record the face-to-face, digital face-to-face sort of chats. We try to keep those to be topical, like we usually have topics in mind to discuss, but we want folks to be able to bring up any type of question, and we want them to have the freedom to have their question be forgotten if they're maybe nervous about the question. So that's one thing that's not available after. So we do recommend you kind of make the day available to go through the workshop, but if you want to sign up and you have, meetings during part of it, or it's too early in your time zone or too late in your time zone, you're still going to get utility, basically. So that's kind of the balance we've come up with, and it's worked well for us so far. The other thing I'll mention is we do heavily use our Discord as part of the workshop too. So while you can, ask questions in a video call, like I mentioned throughout the day, we like to encourage folks to ask questions in the Discord. Obviously, we can jump in and answer there, but that is a great place to have that ongoing discussion after the day. And it's also nice for other folks to be able to see questions and maybe jump in with their own answers, or learn from other folks, or just see what people are asking about is always a useful thing. So we do use the Discord space as part of our workshops as well. So the other one here, like I mentioned, the Domain of One's Own workshop. So that's on the 19th. Similar format. I won't go through all that again, but same thing where we have this content and there's dedicated times to ask questions in between, and we use the Discord for that. So yeah, you can sign up for tickets here. Please let us know if you have any questions about signing up for tickets or anything really related to the workshops that you still have outstanding questions on. We can always just email us, support@reclaimhosting.com. We can help you out. But I kind of wanted to, with that sort of overview out of the way, I kind of want to talk a little bit specifically about, starting with, I think, the Domain of One's Own workshop. So we've got that Domain of One's Own workshop, and one of the things that we like to do is we share a module as part of the that's part of the workshop. This is the intro, basically the first part of the workshop, and we share this one publicly. So I will put this in the Reclaim TV channel in Discord, and feel free to check that out. But this is one of the modules, so you can kind of see what our pages look like here, see the format, and kind of, here's an example of some of our video content. We've got quite a library of this stuff now. So there's some of these are older, some of these are newer, but we always review them for workshop time to make sure it's relevant. And then tons of linked guides and things like that. So I kind of wanted to give Jason, if you could maybe kind of give us a walkthrough of, this particular module, what sort of things are we talking about in this example module here?
Yeah, so basically, this is just going to be a quick introduction to Domain of One's Own. It's a self-paced introduction. It's created to help new administrators get oriented with Domain of One's Own before you're jumping in to more in-depth training. Just kind of scrolling through here, what to expect is at the top here. This is just a primer. It's designed for beginners, so it's going to introduce you to the core ideas behind Domain of One's Own. It's going to point you to key resources, prepare you to take part in the future admin training. So it typically takes about 1 or 2 hours. It's totally self-paced, so you can just do this at your leisure. You can do it all at once or just work through it in bits and pieces as you have time.
Yeah.
All the materials here are available for you to work through. Just do it on your own schedule. There's a video you can watch, all the links that you can look through. You can pause, rewind, return to them whenever you need a refresher. So it's just really nice. If you're brand new to this, you can just kind of go through it. Whenever, if it doesn't make sense the first time, come back, take a look at it again. And we go through all this stuff in the workshop as well. So if there is something you encounter here that you have more questions about, just make a note, and then we can answer those questions during the more in-depth training if the training itself doesn't answer them for you.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons I like putting this module out here, when we talk about the workshop at these streams, every time we always do this little preview thing that we're doing today. If you are not sure if the Domain of One's Own module is like for you, if you're like, oh, maybe I know this stuff, or maybe it's, maybe I have some questions and I'm not ready for this workshop or whatever. This is a really great primer to kind of give you a sense of, okay, this is the intro. This is where we're starting. And so if you have questions that this doesn't cover, you can ask them, of course, ahead of time. If you have questions on okay, well, how far do we go from here as part of the workshop? Hopefully we'll give you a sense of that today as we go along, but also great, you can ask us questions too. So this is sort of where we start for the day. This intro module is primarily made of resources that we do have on our knowledge base, but kind of, reoriented, recontextualized. And it goes through a lot of different things, what is Domain of One's Own, kind of the systems that make it up, giving you sort of an overview of that. And
yeah, it's nice because it gives you just it's basically like a virtual walkthrough, right? It gives you just an overview of everything, explaining how all the systems work together. So the first few resources there are just going to give you a nice overview of what Domain of One's Own is. And then the last ones are going to give you some more of the, admin roles and responsibilities and kind of a clear explanation of how things like domain names work and things like that. So it just kind of gives you a nice overview of everything you're going to encounter.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll put that. I'll put the link up here too on screen, just to make this easy to see. But this is the page that we're looking at right now. So, like I said, this is that free module. Definitely check it out if you're thinking about the workshop. I've got it in Discord too. But if you're seeing this video later, I suppose I probably should show that for a little bit longer. So let me do that again. And so you can check that out, get a sense of where the workshop starts out.
One other thing to mention here on this module, the link there for the chat channel on Discord is there. So as Alexis mentioned, that's helpful. And so, we encourage you to connect with other administrators. If you have any questions or you just want to throw some thoughts out there and get feedback, it's a great place to do that.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so kind of going through a little bit more, just as a preview for the Domain of One's Own module, other things that we like to cover beyond the intro. We do talk a little bit more about advanced topics, so kind of the systems at play in Domain of One's Own and what their roles are and where you can administer what. So we do some deep dives into both the WordPress dashboard for Domain of One's Own, WHMCS, which is like the client management area is what it's called. But basically that's your list of folks who have logged into Domain of One's Own and have accounts and what belongs to whom. And WHM, which is sort of server management stuff. And so a lot of that is kind of the tools that the WHM tools are things that we're using at Reclaim to make sure cPanel and hosting accounts are working as you'd expect. But there are some tools in there that can be handy for Domain of One's Own admins as well to kind of see usage of the service. So we kind of talk about some of that stuff available to you. What you might want to think about in terms of life cycle of Domain of One's Own. So setting limits to make sure people aren't using too much storage on their accounts and things like that is important, especially as projects go on. So that's a big focus of the Domain of One's Own workshop. We also get into troubleshooting, broken sites. So kind of the opposite, instead of the macro of how do we manage this big thing, how do we fix one person's website when it's broken? So we do talk a little bit about that, show some concrete kind of strategies that you can use to do that sort of troubleshooting. And also we talk about sort of how do you grow a project sustainably? So how do you manage accounts over time? Because you don't want to just leave old accounts that folks aren't using or don't belong to the institution anymore. How do you do that over time? How do you do it in a way that isn't going to make you want to pull your hair out? So we talk about all those types of strategies as well. And I really do think, especially the sustainable and long-term planning kind of stuff, I think is possibly the most valuable, because it's hard to make time for that type of discussion, especially when you're in the middle of a project. I see a lot of people talking about this when we're talking to new schools about who are signing up for Domain of One's Own. But if you're coming in and administering Domain of One's Own at a school and maybe it's existed for 3 or 4 years or 10 years already, it's hard to kind of make this time and space to really think through that properly. So I think workshops like this are a great opportunity to do that and learn about those strategies you can kind of employ. So that's kind of, that's an overview for the Domain of One's Own workshop. Now we can kind of chat about WordPress Multisite. So we don't have a sample module for this workshop, but I will say the content, the way that the pages look and the delivery is similar to Domain of One's Own. Obviously, just the content is different. Alexis, can you kind of walk us through what folks should expect the WordPress Multisite workshop to cover?
Yeah, and I also want to speak on like who these workshops are useful for, because sometimes I feel like it can get narrowed down at schools. I worked at a school. And so I just want to mention that this is useful for, yes, the admins, but also if you have any like student helpers, I feel like these workshops are super helpful because it gives kind of an overview of the infrastructure that they'll be helping you with. So it's really useful for students if you want to get them in on this. And also we've gotten some Domain of One's Own people who are interested in WordPress multi-site and vice versa. So I do feel like this is a cool way to kind of intro into either or. And that's, I think, why we offer the double ticket, because we do have schools that I think have both, but some schools only have one. And so this is kind of a way to get information on what's the difference, what are the nuances, and how you can use both, I feel like.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I like bringing up the student worker thing, as well as even just folks who are maybe not the main admin, but help out and maybe don't have access to all the tools necessarily. There will be things that in the Domain Owner's Own workshop in particular, and in some cases the WordPress multi-site workshop, that we wouldn't necessarily recommend. Like if you have a student worker working for you, you might not want them in WHM. And we'll kind of talk about that in the workshop, or you can ask questions about it of why that might be. But that doesn't mean that it's not useful, I think, for them to know about, frankly, what those tools are, even if they don't have access to them. And of course, there's a plenty of other stuff that they will have access to. And ultimately, that's your choice on what you do or do not give folks access to. That itself, I think, is a good reason to learn sort of like what systems are at play here, what privileges do you want to give to whom when administering things. I would say about the only type of person who might be who maybe the Domain Owner's Own workshop is not a great fit for, because we do get this question once in a while, is to say, hey, I have faculty who are heavy users of WordPress. They have a cPanel account and they're like building a bunch of WordPress sites. Can I send them to this workshop and they'll learn about creating different types of WordPress sites? And to which I'd say, not really. That's kind of a different that's sort of a different workshop, one that we don't really offer right now. So if you're mostly concerned with you're an individual who has an account on Domain Owner's Own and you're creating stuff, a lot of the workshop won't be for you necessarily. That troubleshooting section you could use, I suppose, but it is mostly focused on folks who are thinking about stewarding Domain Owner's Own as a platform for their school, and whether you're a student who's helping with that, or you're a staff administrator or a faculty member or whatever. I think it'll be useful, but it is kind of focused on the folks who are in charge of multiple accounts, in at least in some way.
Yeah. And I also want to draw attention to the fact that we advertise it for both new admins and also continuing admins. And I think that's an important distinction, because sometimes we have use the language of like intro to and you might think like, I don't need an introduction. I've been on the service for a really long time. But even going through some of the workshops myself, there were times where I would review a video and then realize like I could have been making my life so much easier as an admin if I just knew that thing existed. So I'm always of the mind, like there's always something new to learn. Even if you are an expert, there's always something that you might learn from other admins. There might be something that you forgot about that you're reminded of during these workshops. So I always just want to call out to the fact that even if you're an old hat at this, you can keep going. So
yeah,
I feel like with just WordPress, and even if you just have a single WordPress site, there's so many options and settings and things you can do that it kind of gets overwhelming. And then when you move on to the admin level, it's just there are even more options and even more settings and even more tools. So yeah, I think regardless of how long you've been doing it, there's always something that you probably haven't used before or haven't used for a while and use a refresher on. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, Alexis, can you give us kind of an overview of the multi-site workshop and what we're covering there?
Yeah. So the multi-site workshop, we kind of give like a high level overview, just like an introduction. But then we go more into like the basics of administering the WordPress multi-site, including like how to use the dashboard, which can be very confusing. A lot of the things that go with WordPress are like duplicated in WordPress multi-site, but also have different like ways of getting to things. And so that can be a really tough process to figure out where you're at in your WordPress multi-site. So we kind of go through the basics of just like the layout of how WordPress multi-site works. And then we go further into like themes and plugins, both like making them accessible to your users and more into really like the decision making process behind that. Because with WordPress multi-site, you can decide what is available to your users, and that can feel like a big decision. So we kind of have a conversation around that, and we also suggest plugins that we really like using on WordPress multi-site. And then we also talk about, kind of in that same vein, just generally kind of structuring the project to support your goals and the way that you want to um, use WordPress multi-site and the things that can help you get there, which again is just kind of like the starting brainstorming process. But even if you've already created your project, there are always ways to like implement new things to kind of steer it in the right direction if you feel like it's not currently supporting your goals. Um, and then we kind of go into the long term of WordPress multi-site and what that looks like, including the management of, as your WordPress multi-site grows, sometimes that can become unwieldy for some people. So we have some tips and tricks for that. And then we also have tips on archiving sites, which can feel really important. With domain of one's own, you have your own cPanel, and there's like easy ways to move that cPanel out. But what does that mean for sites that are living on WordPress multi-site? So we kind of go into more information about that. And then we also provide case studies of our WordPress multi-site, which is just helpful to see how other people are using this in the wild. So,
yeah, I think so the WordPress multi-site workshop one, it is an interesting one, I think, for me, because the dynamic a little bit for us at Reclaim between Domain of One's Own and WordPress multi-site is interesting, I think, from like a support perspective, because WordPress, I think, around here is our bread and butter, but obviously Domain of One's Own is like kind of what we exist for here at Reclaim. Like, it's the thing. And when we have these workshops, it's really common that when folks have questions that we don't cover in the workshop, they kind of, they pose them to us. And of course, we answer them as best we can. Sometimes we need to think about it and respond later or whatever. But a lot of times we, can answer them right on the spot. And that is similar for multi-site too. But WordPress multi-site is not a Reclaim thing. It is global. It's big, it's huge, all kinds of things, and vendors and companies and whatever support multi-site. And so while that happens, I would say, while that same dynamic of, hey, I have a question about this, and I'll pipe up and say, oh, well, you could think about doing this and this, it is equally as often someone says, yeah, what Taylor said is good. And the way we do that is, or bad, or whatever. There's what Taylor said, and we at this institution do this completely different thing that you might want to consider. And so I always really like this workshop from the perspective of us being able to learn, I would say in some cases, from the audience as much as they may learn from us. And I do think we put together a good workshop and you'll get a lot from it. But I always learn about like 2 to 3 to 4 plugins that I've literally never heard of at this particular workshop, or like ways of using multi-site that I hadn't considered before. And I think the analog for that is I always come out of the Domain of One's Own workshop with sort of list of, these are the challenge, like this is a thing I'm always taking notes on. These are the challenges that people have with Domain of One's Own, and maybe we can improve it, or maybe we can investigate this. And on the WordPress multi-site, I'm always kind of like, these are the challenges people have, and these are the myriad of ways that they're solving them. And maybe we can think of adopting some of those and recommending them, possibly in a future version of this very workshop, right? But it's almost like a learning community that takes place over a day in some ways. And obviously what you're paying for is our time to kind of prepare all of this and get it together and organize it and make the content and all of that stuff. But I think a really big value of it is just a dedicated space and time to again, learn from each other, from us here at Reclaim, but also other folks attending the workshop. So I really hope people get that, feel that that's valuable too, because it's my favorite part of it is learning from what other people are doing, which I know is something I've said a couple times, but it takes a different shape, I think, in something like WordPress Multisite, where the community is so large.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm excited to participate in this one because I haven't participated in this WordPress Multisite workshop yet. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're really excited, as I've mentioned, that we've got a little bit of time before these come up here. They're March 10th and March 19th. However, we're near the end of January now, so it's like basically a month and a couple weeks before these workshops kick off. So if you're thinking about attending, I would encourage you to go get a ticket right away on our event calendar. If you need help with any questions around the workshops or like paying for the workshops, let us know. You can email us at support@reclaimhosting.com, and we're happy to chat with you about it. And if you're someone who does attend this workshop or the Domain of One's Own one, you'll hear this again from us when you do attend, but we're always keen on what we can do to kind of improve them and revise them and polish them over time. So, please offer that feedback. We'll ask for it after the workshop, but I would say if you're thinking of attending and you're having trouble understanding this, I'll take the feedback before too, if you have any of it. So we always want to improve these, make them more accessible to people, and both the literal delivery of them, but also just the concept. And so please let us know if you have any questions about it as you go through the process. Yeah, and I guess I should probably mention it one more time that the prices are all here. It's on the event calendar, so it's $195 for 1 day, $375 for either both days if you want to do that, or 2 people to 1 day. We have that sort of block discount. So go check it out on the event calendar.
Excited to see you guys there.
Yeah. Anything else to add, Alexis or Jason, before we sign off for the day?
All good here.
Great. Well, I hope everyone has a good weekend who's watching us live. And if you're watching us later, I hope you're having a good day, I guess. I am going to urge everyone to stay warm and dry. It's cold and snowy and icy and wet here in the U.S., and it's currently negative 44 feels like temp where I'm at, which is even for Wisconsin. I like to joke about Wisconsin weather a lot. I'm sure Alexis and Jason are tired of hearing about it. But negative 44 is cold even for us. It's crazy. So I'm going to attempt to stay warm today. And I hope Alexis and Jason, you have a good day too. So
thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.
Stay warm.
Will do.